In today's presentation, I will be taking you through, after a small introduction, to the global synthetic latex polymers market overview. I will then focus on the major impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, and more specifically examples from Africa and South America regions, which are the two more recently covered markets, along with Europe. I will then invite my colleague Carlos, who's the expert on the Europe market, to bring us more deeper insights from the European region, along with COVID-19 impact on that regional market, as well as the outlook. So here's a very brief introduction to Klein. Klein is a global market research and management consulting company. Its businesses are into three main categories, that is market research reports, which are basically in-depth syndicated research reports identifying market opportunities in different geographical markets, custom research, which answers specific client questions, and management consulting that involves itself into business issue solving and implementing strategic solutions. Klein is truly global in its presence as well, with its headquarters in New Jersey in the US, with offices also across different geographies, one in Brazil, 3 offices in Europe, we have 1 in Middle East, and 4 in Asia. So now more about the topic of focus today, that is the synthetic latex polymers. This program, Synthetic Latex Polymers, is a very important franchise for Klein, and it has been covering this for nearly 50 years. And it's really gone a long way from covering just the US market to a truly global coverage. In the 1990s, a global program was introduced, that is a global series was introduced. And in 2015, starting 2015, we entered into what is now called a triannual global market coverage. What it means is that in a 3-year cycle, we provide a global market coverage, as it says, with researching and publishing few key regions each year. It is because of specific nature of the methodology that makes us unique in this industry. And it is really the very strong focus on primary research that allows us to be the pioneers. What it means for synthetic latex polymers market research is that a large number of interviews in each market geography has been conducted with participants across the supply chain, that is including not just the suppliers and distributors, but also the customers that are the end users, and also other organizations like trade associations, government agencies, and also industry opinion leaders. And as I was saying about the global coverage of this program, you can see from this map that all the key geographies are covered, along with within each geography, the key country markets are covered. Later in this presentation, we will have more insights from the Europe regional market, which is basically a combination of the 5 main country markets and all others in that region. So what all do we cover within the scope of synthetic latex polymers in terms of products? We cover all the major latexes under the category of acrylics, polyvinyl acetates, redisposable powders, styrene butadiene latex, vinyl acetate copolymers, and also now opaque polymers, as well as also some minor latex polymers. Now let us look also at the coverage of applications or industry end users. We know that each polymer chemistry is used in many different application areas, and also vice versa. Every application areas use a myriad of polymer chemistries for its different applications. So this table really shows that complexity of coverage, which makes it very important for us to understand, in order to understand the market for each of the polymer chemistry, to understand its application markets. So how we cover this research is we do an in-depth analysis of each of the application industries that are listed here in the first column, and understand the different dynamics, trends, because those are actually what are shaping the consumption dynamics of the polymer chemistry. How does our report look like? Very quickly, our reports, after an introduction and executive summary, give a regional overview of the geographical market and goes into the analysis of the market from the point of view of products, that is the consumption, supply share, prices, trades, etc., from the point of view of each polymer chemistry. It then goes on, which is actually the main part of the report, into the end use analysis. And as I was mentioning in the when I was showing that table, that each of the end use applications are studied in depth in this section for the industry overview, trends, consumption of the polymer chemistries, the competition within the different products, and even outside of the products like competing technologies, supplier scenario, competitive landscape, outlook, and much more. The report also gives us then the supplier landscape and profiles of the leading 10 suppliers in that geographical region. The program also comes with an interactive database, which is a highly useful tool for us to analyze the data the way we want to see it. It allows us to apply different filters, slice and dice the data really and analyze it to our requirement. Okay, so now I will present to you some findings from the global synthetic latex polymers market and try to give you an idea of the dynamics of it. So globally, we are actually looking at a market which is sized close to 14 million dry tons. And North America and China are the biggest consumers of synthetic latex polymers. Each of these markets actually holding roughly a quarter share of the global consumption. And that is followed by Europe and CIS, which together holds close to 20% share, which is followed by Southeast Asia, India, Middle East, South America, Africa, and then the rest of the world. Now, I'd like to add that what we see here is really the current scenario, or rather the 2020 scenario. But it is evolving. The share of the different regions and their importance in the global scenario has already been evolving before COVID-19, but also more now after the COVID-19 and its impacts. So one example I can say is for the Southeast Asia region, which was already a growing market when it comes to the demand of synthetic latex polymers, but more so now with its booming, the extra boom that its glove industry got because of the demand that came with the COVID-19 impact. So its importance may be even growing in the global scenario. Now, let us look at the global market from the point of view of application industries. So again, if we look at the global picture, paints and coatings is the biggest application market, followed by adhesives and sealants, and then paper and construction. Then there are a bunch of applications like glove dipping, carpet, textiles, non-woven, and there are actually a lot more. We do see the major ones in this pie chart, but there are more than 15 applications independently and in-depth covered in this program. Again, this is the global picture, but if we were to look at specific regional market, the share of the applications and even their ranking would look different. Again, from my example of Southeast Asia, if we do this for that region, it will be glove dipping, which will have a dominating role in this pie chart. If we look at just China, maybe adhesives would be the top one there. So again, the nature of the market depends not only from one region to another, but even from one country to another, as we'll see in the following part of the presentation. But for now, I'd like to bring out specific examples from South America and Africa, and splitting its market of synthetic latex by applications. So as you can see from the bar chart on the right, that in both South America and Asia, it is paints and coatings, which is the biggest application, but their share do vary. Like it's more important in South America compared to what it is in Africa. In Africa, adhesives and sealants and construction hold more importance than they do in South America. But there are some striking contrasts as well. For example, paper is an important or significant application in South America, but very small in Africa. On the other hand, carpet is significantly big in Africa, but very small in South America. We will see some more of such differences in the following parts. Let us also look at the global picture from the point of view of polymer chemistries now. For the sake of simplicity, I am clubbing the polymer chemistries here by categories or chemistry groups, but in the program, there are more than 20 individual polymer chemistries covered. So globally, acrylics is the biggest polymer chemistry in the market of synthetic latex, followed by styrene butadiene latex. Then comes PVAC, VA copolymers, RDP, and then there are a bunch of others grouped together here. Again, bringing out the examples from South America and Africa, it is acrylics, which is the biggest in both, as we can see, but its importance is much higher in South America than it is in Africa. In Africa, PVAC is the second biggest, or having slightly more importance than it does in South America. This actually shows us the differences which are there in different regions in terms of the dynamics of preferring one chemistry over another. It also depends on the size of its end-use industries. Okay, so let's go into a little bit in depth on these two markets of South America and Africa. I will present some key insights and also give you some major impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on these two regional markets, with also a glimpse of the outlook. So I'll start with Africa. And in Africa, as we can see from this pie chart, the two biggest country markets are Egypt and South Africa. And these two country markets are not very similar, as we can see now. From the bar chart on the left, we see the distribution of the market from by different applications. In Egypt, paints and coatings is the biggest application, and the second biggest is carpet. But in South Africa, it is the adhesives and sealants, which is the biggest application, followed by construction. So we see these, unique differences that mark up very local and regional trends, even within the same region, but in different country markets. So let's see what happened because of COVID-19 in Africa. Well, as we all know, COVID-19 impacted all the industries almost, some more, some less. When it comes to Africa, it is more of a worse picture than better when we look at the different application industries of synthetic latex that are present in Africa. Carpet industry was the most negatively impacted because of COVID-19 in the year 2020, because of its non-essential nature of the product, and also because the furnishing and construction projects were delayed. People were really not into recarpeting their areas. The demand because of this of synthetic latex polymers in carpet industry fell by almost 19% in the year 2020. Construction industry was also badly impacted because many projects were delayed, halted, cement production as well as demand declined. This caused the demand of synthetic latex to decrease by 14.3% in Africa in the year 2020. Textile also suffered because demand and production both temporarily declined and they were very slow to recover. Adhesives and sealants had a slightly mixed impact, wherein the segments like transportation, building and construction adhesives were very badly impacted. There were some segments like packaging, paper, and both segments basically coming from the packaging industry were doing good in the year, but they were not as big as to be able to offset the negative impact on the other bigger segments of adhesives and sealants, and we saw an overall decline there as well. Well, paint industry also suffered because of the infrastructure growth decline in the region. But the impact of COVID-19 was different on the paint industry in the different countries of the Africa region. But holistically, we feel that the recovery in the industrial sector will be better going forward. As you can see that in Africa, the picture looks rather gloomy, especially if we talk about 2020, but we do expect a steady recoveries in these application areas. As we'll go more into the examples from Europe, we'll see more mixed impacts. That is, some application industries even benefited, like gloves, like non-wovens, disposable segments, because of COVID-19. For Africa, these industries were not important when it comes to latex demand. So overall, we did see a bad picture for the latex demand in 2020. Now I come to South America. In South America, you can see from this pie chart that there's one single dominating country market, that is Brazil, and that pretty much decides the market dynamics for that region, followed by Argentina and then the rest of South America. I'm giving you the split of the synthetic latex polymers by chemistry in this region. We saw by application earlier, but I'm now giving for more clarity and more examples by chemistry here. So in Brazil, Argentina, and also in rest of America, it's acrylics, which is the biggest, slightly even more big in Argentina than in the other countries. But again, there are some differences in the shares of applications when it comes to the demand of synthetic latex here as well. Like PVAC and styrene butadiene latex are equally important in Brazil, a little bit more than they are in Argentina, while in the rest of South America, it is PVAC, which is slightly holding a more better importance area than in the other two regions. The PVAC probably is the cheapest of all polymer chemistries. Also goes on to tell us something about the price sensitivity of the different country markets. So how did the COVID-19 impact South America market for synthetic latex polymers? Well, it had a mixed impact on this region. It did impact almost, again, all the application areas negatively, but there were some areas which were quick to rebound, like construction, paints and coatings, nonwovens, and adhesives and sealant sectors. Actually, this region was quite quick to revive its construction and infrastructure industry, and so some of the other applications followed suit. But there was more bad impact on some other application areas like textiles, carpets, leather. This is more coming from, the fact that these were the sectors most hit by the supply chain disruptions, temporary lockdowns, and even some shutdowns in the industry. So overall, if we sum up for the market of synthetic latex in South America, we did see a small increase in the demand in the year 2020. So what can we expect going forward? Let's answer this question from the point of view of polymer chemistries. RDP or redispersible powders are expected to be growing the fastest in this region of South America in the next 5 years. This is coming from the growth in the construction industry, but also from the advantageous properties that RDP has, and that makes it being able to use on the side of construction, easier logistics. Styrene acrylics is and will continue to be the biggest polymer chemistry in the region of South America, coming from its cost effectiveness and also from the shift from asphalt blankets to acrylic blankets that will favor synthetic styrene acrylics in this region. Some chemistries that will be slow to grow here will be vinyl acetate, ethylene, and high solid styrene butadiene. So I hope you got a good glimpse of the different dynamics of synthetic latex polymers market from global and some of these regional examples. I would now invite Carlos to take us a bit deeper into the European market insights.
Thank you, Shilpi. Hi, everyone. I am Carlos Caland, and I will be presenting the Europe market insights. I'll start by giving a split of the consumption of synthetic latex polymers by country. Then we will take a look into the key application markets and also into the split by end-use industries. And after that, we'll mention the competitive scenario, and also a split by suppliers will be given. So let's start. Okay, so the market of synthetic latex polymers in Europe and in 2020 was estimated at 2.5 million dry tons. As we can see in this pie chart, Germany is the largest market, accounting for approximately 20% of the market by volume. Germany is the biggest market in the main application in which synthetic latex polymers are used, which are paints and coatings, paper, and adhesives and sealants. After Germany, and as we can see also in the pie chart, Italy seconds the ranking with approximately 13% of the market volume in Europe. Construction, adhesives and sealants, and paints and coatings are also the largest application in Italy. But also, this country is the largest market for the leather, footwear, and textile industries. The top 5 largest market is completed by France, the UK, and Spain. But also, among other European countries, we find the Scandinavian countries with a significant share of the synthetic latex polymers market for the paper industry, and Belgium and the Netherlands, which are by far the biggest consumers within the carpet industry. Now let's take a look into the split by application. As we can see in the first pie chart, paints and coatings continue to be the largest end-use industry, accounting for more than 1/4 of the market by volume. Overall, for paints and coatings, synthetic latex polymers observed a growth in 2020 compared to 2019, thanks to the good performance of the architectural segment, which did compensate the steep decline within the industrial segment. Architectural segment with a high penetration of water-based formulations is the biggest segment of paints and coatings. On the other hand, industrial segment, which is divided into wood, metal, and traffic, accounted for approximately 20% of the market by volume. Also, we can see in the first pie chart that paper is the second largest end-use application in Europe. Paper, which was already showing a decremental behavior prior to 2020, showed a deeper decline than expected, caused by the decline of demand of coated and graphic paper. Adhesives and sealants completes the top 3 main applications of synthetic latex polymers in Europe. Other key applications include construction, nonwoven, and carpets. And also we have textile, molded foam, glass fiber, leather, and tires, which in this chart are represented by the all other category, representing 12% of the synthetic latex polymers. And also, it's important to mention that such a split by sub-application given, for instance, here in the second chart, is actually given by the main or for the main applications, such as adhesives and sealants, construction, nonwoven, carpets, among others. So we can find a detailed split for these applications in the report and in our database. Now, let's understand the application market from the point of view of latex polymer chemistry involved. It's important to mention that every end-use market has a very different mix of polymers in terms of applications, which depends on available technologies, on trends, preferences, prices, and other factors. Such a split of polymers is given by application and by country. In this slide, for instance, we can see that for the paper application in Germany, the main synthetic latex polymer used is the carboxylated styrene polymer, accounting for almost 3/4 of the market volume. However, for paints and coatings, the split varies differently, since acrylics is actually accounting for most of the market. And also for adhesives and sealants, it's actually the PVAC polymer, which is largely used. So as I mentioned, this split by polymer is given by all application and also by countries. It is also important to understand the supply chain of this industry in Europe. In the region, direct sales is the preferred route to the market. However, some distributors such as Brenntag are also widely used. The importance of distributors in this market varies from one country to another. Okay, so having looked at the consumption side, let's now take a look into the supply side of this market and the competitive landscape. The market of synthetic latex polymers in Europe has the presence of more than 50 suppliers. Nevertheless, and as we can see in this pie chart, the top 7 suppliers hold almost 3/4 of the market, and the market position has not significantly changed in the last 3 years. As we can see, Synthomer is the leading supplier in the market, since they are also the largest producers of carboxylated styrene-butadiene polymer, and also they acquired Omnova company, which improved the leading position of Synthomer in Europe, accounting in 2020 for 19% of the market volume. Also, we can see in the pie chart that BASF occupies the second position with 16% of the market share. BASF is the leading supplier of acrylics in Europe, followed by Celanese and Wacker, which are the leading suppliers of BA copolymers and redispersible powders, respectively. Other big suppliers, and important in Europe with an important market share, are Dow, Trinseo, and Vinavil. Okay, so the competitive landscape widely varies from one chemistry to another. For instance, here we can see in the first pie chart that for acrylics, apart from the main suppliers, which are BASF, Dow, and Synthomer, there is still an important presence of large, medium, and small suppliers. Whereas for the styrene-butadiene latex family, the market is relatively more consolidated, with the main suppliers, Synthomer, Trinseo, and BASF, accounting for the 85% of the market. Now, let's take a look a little bit closer at the impact of COVID-19 and the outlook of synthetic latex polymers in Europe. As we can see in this figure, the COVID-19 had a different impact across different applications in which synthetic latex polymers are used. The applications were either positively or negatively affected. Here, for instance, we can see that cloth dyeing and non-woven were actually benefited. This was because of the increased demand of hygiene-related items. Demand for barrier coatings and flexible packing increased also due to the rise in online purchases, which drove the demand for packaging. Paints and coatings and adhesives and sealants were more resilient, benefiting from the demand for do-it-yourself products and home improvement trends caused by the lockdowns. More vulnerable applications were footwear, leather, and tires, which actually showed a double-digit decline in 2020 in Europe. Now, let's take a look at some of the major market dynamics in 2020 that affected the demand of synthetic latex polymers. First, we can see, like the first square, packaging did actually better than ever. Thanks to the increased use of e-commerce platforms, some segments of adhesives and sealants, inks, and flexible packing were benefited. On the other hand, the pandemic worsened the situation of paper application, which was already showing a decline due to the shift from printed to digital paper. The increased demand of packaging did not compensate the fall in the coated and graphic paper, since most of the synthetic latex polymers are actually used in coated and graphic paper. Also, travel and transport restriction further stalled economic activity in the region. COVID-19 had a mixed effect in paints and coating industry, since the architectural segment benefited from home improvement trends because of most of the people staying at home. This resulted on a growth of both interior and exterior coatings. On the other hand, 2020 was actually a bad year across several industry applications, such as the automotive industry, which caused a steep decline on industrial coatings. Overall, synthetic latex polymers for paints and coatings observed a growth in 2020 compared to 2019. As I mentioned, this was thanks to the good performance of the architectural segment, which compensated the high decline within the industrial segment. Other applications that were negatively affected by the decline of the automotive industry mainly were industrial textiles, durable non-woven, and tires. 2020 was actually the year of disposable non-woven. This was because the increased demand of wipes and medical non-woven items that were needed to combat the pandemic situation. Okay, now let's take a look at this, which is a comparison between the situation of the synthetic latex polymer market before the pandemic, which is represented by the light blue line, versus the actual situation, considering the pandemic factor, which is represented with the dark blue line. Before the pandemic, the synthetic latex polymer market was expected to have a CAGR of 1.6%. However, in 2020, and as we can see in the dark blue line, due to COVID, the demand grew less than expected, caused by the significantly reduced demand for coated paper, durable non-woven, textiles, industrial coatings, among others. But this decline was partially offset by applications such as disposable non-woven, architectural paints and coatings, and packaging, which actually held better. As a result, the market of synthetic latex polymers overall in Europe grew by 0.3% in 2020. The future growth is expected to be slightly higher than the pre-COVID growth because of the industry recovery and also the faster development of applications such as adhesives and sealants and packaging, which are expected to be one of the main drivers of the consumption of synthetic latex polymers in Europe. In order to get a better understanding of the forecast I just mentioned, let's now take a look at the top applications. The differences between the growth rates before the pandemic, which are represented here in the chart by the dark blue bars, versus the growth rates after the pandemic, which are represented by the light blue bars. Here we can see, for instance, that for paints and coatings, adhesives and sealants, and non-woven, there was actually a growth in 2020, and such a growth is expected to continue during our forecast period. On the other hand, paper, as you can see, and as I already mentioned, declined in 2020. Then it is expected to show a slight recovery, but after this recovery, it is expected to remain stagnant, likely. Then textiles, for instance, as we can see in this chart, decreased in 2020, but is expected to fully recover and from then growth by 2025. And with this slide, this brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope you had found interest in these insights in Europe. And now I'll pass again the control to Shilpi.
Thank you, Carlos, for this very interesting insights from Europe market. In closing, I would just like to remind our guests about the 3-year program that I was talking about in the beginning. So this year, we have already published, which is what is marking the first year of this cycle, current cycle, involving the coverage on Europe and CIS, South America and Africa. This is for the base year 2020. Very soon, we will be coming out with the regional reports on North America, China, and India. That will be in the first half of the coming year and having base year 2021, which will be followed by the coverage on Middle East, Southeast Asia, and the rest of the world in the first half of 2023 and the base year having 2022. The market research reports and the interactive database now also comes with a new mapping tool. This is actually a very interesting tool that allows us to map the value chain of this industry. It marks all the manufacturers of synthetic latex polymers with their capacities on a global map. It also maps the monomer manufacturers, which is one step back the value chain, and also the end users or the customers, which marks the one step ahead of the value chain in this industry. This is all from my side today. I hope you found this presentation useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shilpi and Carlos, for your presentation. And this is the end of our session today. And I'd like to thank everyone who has attended. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to send us an email or contact your account manager. And keep watching for more webinar invitations in the coming weeks. And goodbye.